In North Dakota, Senator Kent Conrad, the Democrat, retains his seat. In Ohio, this was an upset for the Democrats. This is the seat that the Democratic Senator Howard Metzenbaum vacated. A Republican, Mike DeWine, the lieutenant governor of the state, is now taking it over. This is one that the Republicans were fighting hard for. In Oklahoma, another turnover. This was an open seat vacated by Senator Boren, the Democrat. Representative James Inhofe wins it. Representative Dave McCurdy, the Democrat, was visited, had a lot of support from the Clinton administration, including the president himself. Didn't work. In Rhode Island, Senator John Chafee, the incumbent, will go back to office. In Tennessee, Bill Frist, a physician, a surgeon. Well, this is Fred Thompson. Sorry, this is the other Senate seat in Tennessee. Fred Thompson, the Republican, takes it away from Representative Jim Cooper. This was an open seat. This was Al Gore's seat. Also in Tennessee, the big winner there, Bill Frist defeating Senator Jim Sasser, who had been a very powerful senator, of course. Bill Frist will go to Washington. This is a turnover. In Texas, Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson, easily reelected. In Utah, Senator Orrin Hatch, easily reelected. In Vermont, Jim Jeffords, the Republican, the projected winner, he's the incumbent. In Virginia, big news, Senator Charles Robb, the Democrat, the incumbent, defeating Oliver North. This was a very bitter and very publicized race. West Virginia, Senator Robert Byrd, the Democrat, keeps his seat. In Wisconsin, Senator Herb Kohl, the Democrat, keeps his seat. In Wyoming, a safe seat for the Republicans, Craig Thomas will keep his seat. Those are the Senate projections to now. We'll continue later.
ABC News coverage of the 94.
56% of the vote counted in the 2nd District. He has about an 8,000 vote lead over Joseph Hogsett.
In the 3rd District, up in the northern part of the state, it's Timothy Romer, the Democrat incumbent, easy win over Richard Burkett in that area.
And the first upset we had counted tonight is Mark Souter's win over Jill Long, the Democratic incumbent in the 4th District. Souter wins.
Let's take a look at the 5th Congressional District here. Steve Booyer, the Republican incumbent, with 71% over J.D. Beatty's 29%. The Kokomo County Sheriff just couldn't pull it off tonight.
Up in the 6th District now, Dan Burton with a huge lead and a huge win over Natalie Bruner as expected.
And in the 7th District congressional race, it's John Myers, a big win over Mark Harmless. That was a campaign that we saw a lot of ads for, but Myers pulling it off tonight.
And we'll go now to the 8th District, and this one is very tight, and no winner has been declared here yet. John Hostetler has about a 6,000 vote lead over the incumbent Democrat, Frank McCloskey, another congressional district that the Republicans have been gunning for, with 39% of the vote in. There you see the figures.
And the 9th congressional race, now this is the one that we were sort of befuddled by. We have 41% of the votes counted, with Gene Lysing in the lead with just 51%, Lee Hamilton's 49%. We have heard that Lee Hamilton has already declared victory, but we're still trying to get confirmation of that. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But right now, according to our numbers from the Associated Press, Gene Lysing in the lead.
Which would be the stunning upset of the year. And of course, we're still waiting to get the final figures on that. The information we have other than the figures you saw is that Hamilton has a big lead down there. We'll continue to watch that one. Here's Andy Jacobs' win in the 10th Congressional District. A pretty close call for Andy Jacobs, winning here with 53% of the vote, and he hasn't had that low a victory margin in 20 years. Last time was 1974. Marvin Scott is the man he defeated and in that race. And Marvin Scott earlier this evening had this to say about his campaign and what his future might be.
Come 1996, in the words of that Presbyterian minister, former mayor of the city, who says, "Whoop the Democrats."
We're not going to talk specifically yet for, I think, another 45 minutes about what's happening, because we want, frankly, to make sure that we know what's happening on the West Coast. And you know, the trend lines are very good. They're actually better than we thought they'd be. Obviously, in the Senate, we are, I think, on the verge, again, depending on what happens in Washington State and California, and a couple of very close races. But it looks like Senator Dole will be the majority leader, and that will certainly change things.
Congressman Newt Gingrich in the prosperous suburbs just north of Atlanta, anticipating that he will be the new Speaker of the House, or certainly in a position to do a lot of legislative control there over the next 2 years. He is running against Ben Jones. You probably know him best as Cooter Jones from Hee Haw. About a third of the vote has been counted there. We do expect that Newt Gingrich will be elected and possibly become the Speaker. Then we'll hear a lot about that Republican contract that got so much attention. Can he achieve all the goals that he set forth there, Tim?
He can, Tom, and ask Bob Dole. That's why Bob Dole and the Senate Republicans did not embrace the House Republican contract. Bob Dole has said that you cannot cut taxes, increase defense, and still balance the budget without coping with entitlements, which means Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Newt Gingrich has said otherwise. If the Republicans capture the House and the Senate, they're going to have a real ideological struggle between those two houses.
And of course, one of the interesting things to watch will be whether he can go from being a backbencher, a guerrilla fighter, to a statesman and a leader in the House. He insists that he can. NBC News coverage of Decision 94 continues. Tomorrow. Well, what you see behind me is a quick summary of what has been going on this evening. In the Senate, the Republicans have picked up 7 seats. The governors, for the Republicans, they have picked up 6 seats. President Clinton has been saying all along, well, unemployment is down, the economy is ticking along, we've got democracy restored in Haiti and peace in the Middle East, but it could not compete with higher taxes, with crime and violence, with welfare, with anxiety about good jobs, and something about American values. All that in play, and it's playing into the hands of the Republicans. We have some very close races that we cannot yet call for you. We're going to tell you about the first one right off the bat. This could determine, finally, the ultimate control of the Senate. That is in Pennsylvania. 3/4 of the vote has been counted so far. It's virtually, by our purposes, a dead heat. Harris Warford hopes to hold on to go back. In the New York governor's race, about half the vote has been counted. George Pataki mounting a very strong challenge to Mario Cuomo, who wants a 4th term. We cannot make a call on that race yet. In Florida, Jeb Bush, one of the 2 Bush sons running for governor this time. He's in a tight race with Lawton Chiles. 2/3 of the vote counted. In Texas, pretty much the same thing. 1/3 of the vote has been counted. Incumbent Ann Richards with a very strong challenge from George W. Bush, who's the eldest of the Bush sons. And so that's where that stands at this hour. We still have some very important races to be determined tonight. But it does seem that there is a real Republican tidal wave sweeping across the country, beginning to change the character. We want to talk about that now with some people who have been there before in a variety of capacities. They're with our NBC News correspondent, Gwen Eiffel, in the Eiffel Tower, as we were calling her, little corner of the section here tonight, directly above us. Peggy Noonan, former Senator Warren Rudman, and Geraldine Ferraro, who was, of course, the vice presidential candidate on the Democratic ticket. Gwen?
Well, we wonder, we've been talking among ourselves about how one governs and whether this means that America is now in love with Republicans. Who governs and how?
Well, I think what's going to happen is the Republicans, now that they're the majority in the Senate.
People used to say back when there were baseball seasons, it isn't over till it's over, but it's beginning to look a whole lot as if it might be over. Just to review where we are, this is where it started at dawn on this election day. 44 Republicans in the Senate, 56 Democrats. The Republicans needed to gain 7. Now, we've had so far a net change of 7, but there are 7 seats still undecided. Those could go either way. There could be some additional shifts. If they stay the way they are, then the new Senate will be Republican, and Bob Dole will be Mr. Majority Leader. Back to the National Desk.
That's right, and I think we need to clarify that because we were sounding a moment ago as if it were all over. It's not all over. At this moment, the Republicans have 7 seats. But we don't know. There are still several states out there where they conceivably could lose.
There's an open seat that the Republicans now hold in Minnesota. That could go to the Democrats. That would be a net of 6, which is not quite a majority. So it's still a cliffhanger. We have some suspense yet to go.
And winning the candidate there in Minnesota. Here is Ted Kennedy in Boston at that hotel. That's a unionized hotel, and he chooses it all the time. He looks good. Earlier, CNN declared Kennedy the winner in his race with Mitt Romney. You heard Mitt Romney here live on CNN just a short while ago conceding to the senior senator.
You know, I think conservatives had a fantasy that in this election they could take Ted Kennedy out of the Senate, put Oliver North in the Senate, defeat Mario Cuomo in the State House in New York, and defeat Tom Foley for Speaker of the House. So far, 2 of those things have not happened.
There are 5 Kennedys running tonight. We'll keep you posted on how they do. When Senator Ted Kennedy gets up to the podium to say how sweet it is or whatever, we'll be there to hear it. Judy?
And somebody we want to talk to about all these results is at the White House, George Stephanopoulos, very close advisor to President Clinton. George Stephanopoulos, there's some nice news tonight for the Democrats, but there's also some very difficult news to take, and that is that the Republicans, at least at this hour, have picked up 7 seats.
Yeah, but we still have some hope. I heard you all talking just a couple of minutes ago. We feel good about where Senator Wofford is right now in Pennsylvania, and we think Ann Winnie has a good shot at picking up that seat in Minnesota, so it's too early to say it's over yet in the Senate. We obviously also feel very good about Senator Kennedy, Senator Robb in Virginia. In fact, 9 Democratic incumbents have won tonight. So far, only 1 is lost. So we've had a pretty good night so far. Clearly, there is a message today that the voters want change. They want it to go very, very fast, just as they did in 1992. We hear that.
How do you explain what happened tonight in Tennessee, Mr. Stephanopoulos? You lost both Senate seats in a state which is the vice president's home base.
Well, there's no question that was a disappointment, Judy. We don't feel good about that. It would have been nice for both Senator Sasser and Jim Cooper to pick up those seats, so we feel badly about that. But if you look throughout the South, we're also holding on to some governorships, and we feel good about that. We have to wait and see where all the returns come in and what the numbers are at the end.
What are you hearing, if anything, at this hour about the House seats, the control of the U.S. House?
I think it's really too early to tell. We're doing well on the East Coast so far, a little more disappointing in the South. We still have yet to hear from the West, and I think that's going to be where a lot of the difference is made up.